What you saying? Godzilla.
Godzilla is the world's greatest protector. Yeah, that's right. Move aside Superman and a few of those Avenger guys. It's Godzilla who I want protecting me from giant monster attacks. You know, unless I'm a civilian in the center of a Godzilla attack, because things don't bode well for those guys. Godzilla is more of a, to make an omelet, I gotta step on a few people type of protector. But he gives us great fights at least. Here's a list of some of Godzilla's greatest showdowns. And yes, a certain brawl with a giant primate does make this list. Now, this is how you do a versus movie. Yes, is it a bit of a cop-out to have your movie called Godzilla vs. Kong and then have all your marketing and press say there will be a definite winner in the battle, only for a mysterious third combatant to join the fight, forcing the two to team up and walk away as friends? But at least this one was done well. Maybe I just can't erase how angry the Batman v Superman fight with Doomsday went, but I thought this specific fight was cool. You have a giant ape with an axe teaming up with a humongous lizard with atomic breath, teaming up to fight a man-made MechaGodzilla that went haywire? Yeah, that's awesome. And yes, in terms of a Godzilla fight, our big friend doesn't bode so well, as he's mainly tired from his previous Kong fight and just gets the ever-loving snot kicked out of him most of the time by MechaGodzilla. But there's one moment that I really like in this final battle, which shows off that Godzilla is actually pretty smart. He knows his atomic breath isn't really helpful against MechaGodzilla, so instead he breathes it on Kong's axe in a moment of need, allowing the axe to charge up and become powerful enough to chop MechaGodzilla into spare parts. Is it a little silly? Yeah, but I mean, that's nothing compared to what else we have on this list. 2 words: nuclear Godzilla. For most of Godzilla, King of the Monsters, Ghidorah looked almost unstoppable. I mean, the Titan has 3 heads. And what's the classic saying? 3 heads are better than 1? And don't get me wrong, this Godzilla is a powerful alpha titan, but he's a little bit thick, don't you think? Aww. He isn't a spring chicken with his movements, and it put him at a massive disadvantage when you had 3 Ghidorah heads chomping at him without a way to really defend himself. Well, the ending of the movie gave Godzilla a serious power boost when the humans detonated a bomb near Godzilla in order to infuse him with enough nuclear energy to recharge. The results are terrifying. Godzilla emerges just radiating nuclear energy and melting everything around him just by walking around. This doesn't bode well for Ghidorah, who finds 2 of his heads instantly disintegrated by Godzilla's nuclear aura. After a whole movie of seeing Godzilla get beaten up, it was nice to see him trump the 3-headed monster. Plus, it ends in a fun way where Godzilla chomps on Ghidorah's last head and blasts it with his atomic breath one more time for good measure. As Bradley Whitford's character says at the end of the fight,
"Good thing he's on our side."
There's one thing that's pretty obvious in almost every Godzilla movie. Humans are irrelevant, especially in the Monsterverse movies. It's been said time and time again that humans are the weakest part of the story. It's just because they're never a match for Godzilla and usually are just there to provide cannon fodder. And that's why the 2016 film Shin Godzilla is so fascinating. Yes, the CGI is incredibly questionable, but it also features the most effective attack humans have ever coordinated against Godzilla. It's a multi-layered attack with a ton of soldiers sacrificing their lives to wear out Godzilla enough to attack. It involves ramming explosive trains at his feet, sending countless drones to keep him off balance, then blowing up nearby buildings so they crash and fall on the big monster. When Godzilla is buried under the buildings, they use cranes to inject him with a special sauce that will freeze Godzilla. After another round of train bombings, they inject him with more of that special juice. That's all crazy. Usually we see Godzilla as this unstoppable titan that we just have to hope doesn't step on us or come to our city. But this movie and this fight makes Godzilla a beatable opponent. And by humans, no less. Maybe we aren't so useless after all. Yes, there is a Godzilla Jr., and yes, he dies tragically at the hands of one of Godzilla's greatest enemies, Destoroyah. The film Godzilla vs. Destoroyah was released in 1995 and overall was the 22nd Godzilla movie. The film saw Godzilla's heart approaching a nuclear meltdown that would threaten all of Earth, while also a new threat in Destoroyah arrived to wreak havoc. The ending battle is one for the ages, especially because Destoroyah manages to kill Godzilla Jr., and you try watching that scene where Godzilla approaches his son's body all sad-like and tell me you don't want to see Godzilla immediately kick some Destoroyah butt. Well, that's exactly what happens. In his rage, the meltdown affecting Godzilla starts to accelerate, which gives him a very powerful blast called the Infinite Heat Wave, which Godzilla uses to severely wound the flying monster. The enemy tries to fly away, but the humans help out by freezing Destoroyah's wings, causing him to crash to the ground, and then melt because of the heat. But the end of the fight makes it even more memorable. The humans use the freeze rays to cool Godzilla down enough to save the world, but Godzilla still dies. Shocker! And just when you think there's nothing left to be done, it's revealed that Godzilla Jr.'s body had absorbed all of his father's radiation and came back to life to become basically the new Godzilla. What a strange ending, but an epic one nonetheless. The Godzilla vs. Megalon fight has probably the single greatest moment in any Godzilla fight. It's a moment that defies explanation, physics, and logic. It's one of the biggest instances where you just have to turn your brain off and accept these are people in suits doing silly things. It's the infamous dropkick. The movie itself is the 13th film in the Godzilla franchise, so you have to imagine at that point they're just having some fun with it. In the film, the underwater civilization Seatopia unleashes their Beetle-style god Megalon to destroy the surface world. And Godzilla has to team up with a giant humanoid robot named Jet Jaguar to stop him. The final attack sees Jet Jaguar hold Megalon still, like he's trying to mug him, while Godzilla, who seems to be at least a mile away, gets ready to charge. He gears up and then does the most ridiculous kick in cinema history. How come Godzilla in the new movies couldn't do anything like this, huh? And putting this on the 10 greatest fights might differ for the people who like a more serious Godzilla because, well, yeah, this ain't serious. It took 3 very loosely connected, scattered films, but Godzilla and King Kong finally traded blows in Godzilla vs. Kong in the Monsterverse, and while the final fight is sure to get all the praise as a bright, colorful set piece that just decimates Hong Kong, I actually think the 2 Alpha Titans' first meetup is a better Godzilla fight overall. I mean, at least for Godzilla. It puts Godzilla mostly underwater, which is technically his home turf, and yet we don't get to see the lizard fight a lot of underwater fights. And given his complete dominance of Kong here, it's a real shame. He obviously likes the water. Okay, the events to actually get this first brawl is extremely dumb because the humans try to transport Kong by boat and just kind of hope Godzilla doesn't show up.
Who's the idiot who came up with this idea?
Hint, he does. But the directing of the scene is one of the most well-directed Godzilla fight scenes ever. Look at the way Godzilla hops out of the water to tip the boat as he emerges for the first time. Look at the framing of when Godzilla climbs aboard the freighter and Kong punches him. Who cares if this doesn't seem to make any logical sense, as the boat should have definitely have sunk with that amount of weight. But again, I say, who cares? It's the first meetup between the 2 titans, and seeing Godzilla just kick Kong's butt is pretty awesome. Sure, the script requires Godzilla just to leave instead of finishing Kong off, but everything up to that point is pretty cool. We may be excited to see Godzilla and Kong fight each other now, but this isn't the first time the 2 cross paths. There was an OG Godzilla vs. King Kong, and it's about as silly and cheesy as you'd expect from a 60s movie. Like, their first interaction is sort of hilarious. The 2 monsters roar at one another from a distance while Kong throws rocks and Godzilla shoots atomic breath and ends with them just kind of walking away from each other. But the final fight is a lot of fun. As they brawl, Godzilla gains the upper hand and is just pummeling Kong into submission. But then, Kong gets struck by lightning, which gives him electricity powers and renewed strength. There's also a great shot of Kong angrily stuffing a tree down Godzilla's throat like he's a parent trying to get his kid to eat broccoli.
Eat.
No.
Eat.
I won't.
It ends with both of them tumbling into the ocean, with Kong popping up and beginning to swim back to his island, while no sign of Godzilla remains. Dun dun dun. Don't worry, he was fine. The Godzilla reboot starring Aaron Taylor Johnson and featuring like a 15-second appearance by Bryan Cranston was a dark and moody Godzilla movie that set the stage for everything that came after in the Monsterverse. Honestly, it's not that memorable of a movie, but the final fight scene is pretty cool solely because of one of its epic final moments. Godzilla has to fight 2 MUTOs in the film, and it takes a lot out of him. By the end, he's just tired and decides to end the fight with his atomic breath, which for some reason he was saving until the end while the other movies have him fired off pretty willy-nilly. Anyways, watching Godzilla rip open the MUTO's mouth and fire his atomic breath directly into its insides is by far the best moment in an otherwise meh Godzilla film. That moment and fight alone almost makes the whole thing worth it. What could be scarier than King Ghidorah? How about Mecha King Ghidorah? That's right, the three-headed monster came back in mecha form in a pretty complicated way that involved time travel and the future, but it was all in an attempt to stop Godzilla once and for all. Of course, we know it's not once and for all because there's like 50 movies. Anyways, it's just so awesome seeing Ghidorah in mecha form, and the fight is pretty cool too. The two monsters destroy most of Tokyo, naturally, and when it looks like Mecha Ghidorah is out of the fight, it uses mechanical claws to clamp onto Godzilla and carry him out to sea to finish the fight. When in doubt, just throw Godzilla back into the ocean and hope he stays there. Biollante is a different type of Godzilla villain. Instead of another dragon-type monster, Biollante is actually more plant-based and looks like Audrey 2 from Little Shop of Horrors on steroids. And their final fight is a different type of fight for Godzilla. Biollante almost swallowed Godzilla whole. Imagine that! And even after Godzilla wins, he almost dies by being infected by the plant villain. Don't ya hate it when that happens? And the fact that Biollante is most likely the reincarnated version of a human makes it all the more interesting. Way to get a little crazy, Toho. Man, is it too much to ask for a crossover of versus movies? Can we get next a Godzilla versus Kong versus Batman versus Superman versus Freddy versus Jason? Come on, it's only a matter of time, right?